what I do is I rent it out to people, okay, to people of their crops, right? I'm a good, the capitalist Jew who has his combines, and I just sit in the base medrash and collect the money, right? So I want to rent my combine out to a goy over Shabbos. I'm allowed to earn that money. Says the Maharshag, what you could do is you rent out the goy and you tell the goy, pay me for the gas, and there's an inflation on the gas price, you'll pay me 1,000 shekels more. So that's what he proposes here. Let's just read it quickly.
Isn't there a problem with how much you're not allowed to charge more than like what 1/6 above the value of something that you're giving to someone? That's like an excessive profit rule.
There's I say don't worry. You're right, but I wouldn't worry about it here.
So analytically, it sounds like this is a second way of havla'ah, which is not havla'ah by time, but havla'ah by the payment.
Havla'ah, right. So here it's right, that kind of thing. So that's one direction. Let's just read this briefly. עוד אמרתי דאפשר דלא שייך באיסור שכר שבת, דהרי צריך לצורך הדישה להעסיק המשין על ידי עצים בנזין. Right, coal or gas, right? הנה פשוט הדבר דאף על גב דשכר שבת אסור, or petrol. מכל מקום בוודאי מותר לו לקבל שכר בעד העצים או הבנזין. דהווה כמו מי שלקח דבר של חברו בשבת ואכלו הפסידו, דלא היה לה לדעת, לומר דלא יצטרך לשלם משום דאבה שכר שבת. Right, if I steal something on Shabbos, of course I have to pay back, right? Unless you say, it's Schar Shabbat, right? אם כן יש לומר, כיוון דבעד העצים מהבנזין של ישראל בעל המשין, בוודאי מותר לו ליטול שכר, כן כיוון דמקצת השלומים הללו הם של היתר, ממילא אף שנוטל שכר הרבה, כל תשובה ויצחר שבת בהבלעה. This also, right, once again, you could subsume the rent that you want to charge within the payment for the petrol, right, for the gas. Now, similarly, many poskim said that you could do the same with the work. And this, I want to read them quickly and then just ask what I think is the philosophical question behind this. It says, Aruch HaShulchan, La Bisur HaKavdei, De'etzlam Have Schar Batala. דינם לוקחים בעד השבתות, אלא בעד שעמלים בזה כל השבוע. נמצא שאין נוטלים שכר שבת, אלא שכר בטלה של ימות החול. So a person has to prepare the parsha. That's the Skill of D uses this in the next source. People, you have a community, you have a street minyanim. No one knows how to read the parsha, so you need to quickly hire someone. So you say, all right, well, we'll hire you to read the parsha for us. He's only going to read the parsha on Shabbos. Let's say you have people to read Monday and Thursday. So you could read Monday and Thursday, but let's say he's not around, whatever, right?
Yeah, the preparation is legitimate. You could be spending 5 times the amount of time preparing.
Right, and a lot more so, right? In other words, if you prepared well, it should take you, 20, 25 minutes to read the parsha, but it could take you quite a few hours, 8 to 10 hours to prepare it, right? That's right. The proportion, it's definitely, there's no question that the preparation there is very significant. Similarly, it says the Eshel Avram about the Chazanim. Let's see that in the Eshel Avram over here. Dot schar the Chazanim shemitpalim rak b'shabbat. They're brand new, sorry. מתפללים רק בשבתות ויום טוב ונוסעים ממקום למקום. יש לומר עוד שהוא בגדר שכר הליכה. בגלל שנוסעים ממקום למקום כדי להתפלל. So in a moment where I'm going to read the second half, but his main point is, if I need to, right, if a chazan needs to drive to a different place, if he has to start going, right, commuting out, so if a person has to buy a train ticket, or has to buy a bus ticket, or spend his own gas, his own car, whatever, right, in order to get to the place in which it'll be a chazan, so once again, he should be compensated for what was spent, and his time, and he'll be compensated for that, and also he'll be paid for the rest of the chazanut. So here, the Eshel Avram is more like the Maharshag, right, in the sense that the havla'ah has to do with being compensated for something else. Now, these are two things. One is, right, the gas, the train ticket, whatever it is, the plane ticket, right, whatever it is. That's one aspect, and the other aspect is the time that's spent. And there's also a third thing, which is the fact that he has to leave his family or drag his family. Right? I'm not sure which is worse. Right? That's.
But you're still saying he can be compensated way more than the value. If you bought a plane
Right.
ticket for $1,000, he could be compensated $2,000 for that.
Right, but this again, he didn't invent this. The Maharshag said that about those, right? About the machines, right? If you're going to pay for the petrol, you're going to pay for the coal, right?
I mean, it still seems like you run into problems with either issues of ribbit or being able to.
Ribbit is really not an issue when it comes to
He's
services.
laid out this money and he's getting it back, that money back a week or two later, and instead of laying out.
So ribbit, no, so ribbit. The onaa issue that you raised is more, I'd say, is more of an issue, if any. But that there are more solutions for that.
Then if you're saying that the onaa is not an issue, then I would say that the ribbit then.
Right, no, the ribbit is definitely not an issue because ribbit is only if the money was actually given and then you're getting money in return. It's a bit more complicated than that, but let's leave it at that because now what disturbs the Eshel Avraham is the who are you kidding aspect of this, right? He says, like, what are you really thinking? Are you really thinking, oh, you're compensated for that train ticket and now I'm going to get, 6 times the amount or whatever it is, right? מוכרע על ידי מה שפורשים מאיסור, שנצטרף בעם בני ישראל מחשבה טובה לבדה למעשה. כל שנטייה חס ושלום שיהיה אצלו מענייני רשות וחפצי עצמו, כעיקר נגד חפצי שמיים. וכל שאין בו נטייה כזו, גם אם אצלו בבחינת שווי חפצים אלו מוכרע ליצור מחשבה טובה לבדה, למעשה בעם בני ישראל. ואין צריך לומר במי שחפצי שמיים הם עיקר אצלו כנגד חפצי עצמו, אך גם בשווה מוכרע לטובה. This is an astonishing piece, and I think it really, because somewhere within us, I think we don't like this whole Havla issue, right? Because we're like, all right, so you can game the system. There are ways of gaming the system. We don't really like that. That's why I wanted to add this, because Eshel Avraham says, let's say we're concerned that you say, hey, I'm going to be recompensated. I'm going to be compensated for that train ticket. You're just going to have to pay me, another $5,000 beyond the train ticket. It's like, who are you kidding? He says, well, the question is, how do you generally live your life? If in general, the way you live your life is a life of Torah, a life of mitzvot, or in this case, you're going to be a chazan, you're going to do mitzvot. So even if there is an inkling of a thought, even if there is an aspect where you say, do I really take this very seriously? The answer is, well, we don't really care. We see the way you generally work, the way you generally live your life, and we're going to assume that also this is being done in the same way. Let's have a look at a couple more poskim here. Over here, we're going to see something a bit surprising, because here the Shemat Rakeh Chata is going to make it, and Ravadi is going to machmir, and then we're going to discuss what is the interesting machloket I think there is going on here. Says Shemat Rakeh Chata, Avodah Matzricha Hachana Mibod Yom Mutar Lekabel Schara Agav Hachana Shemifnei Shabbat. Right, so he goes with this. Right, he says if you had to prepare, right, you're going to take a group on Shabbos, right, and show them whatever, right, a tour guide, right, whatever you're doing, right. You had to take a course, you had to study, you had to prepare, you had to print out pages, you had to create whatever you're doing there, right. So you're going to be paid for that, and then there's also the work on Shabbat, and as Glenn said, in many of the cases, it's really true. But I want to go deeper into that in a moment after we see Rav Avadia. Rav Avadia says, you see on page 8, top of page 8, Rav Avadia said, B'shut mayim, me'at mayim, כתב שאין לומר שהטעם שנהגו חזנים בתור שכר שבת בני שטורחים בחול לחזור פרשה פעמיים שלושה. Now, it's funny because we say, לחזור פרשה שניים פעמיים שלושה. If you only prepare the parsha, you only go read the parsha 2-3 times usually, you won't really be prepared. You need a bit more than that, but okay. וכן התוקע הוא טורח בחול ללמוד התקיעות כהוגן. זה אינו, he disagrees with all this, סביר עלי, כיוון שנתינת השכר אינה אלא בשביל התקיעה בראש השנה, לא אכפת להם אם טרח להתלמד לתקוע או לא. לא חשיב כהבלעה. החנן לא אכפת לו אם חזר הפרשה כמה פעמים לפני שבת, או שחזר בליל שבת עצמו, על הכל אין דרך הסרות, אלא מה שנראה לעיניים. בתפילה ובתקיעה, מה אכפת על הנעשה בחדרי חדרים? נמצא שטעם זה נדחה, קראו לו, ולאו בר סמכה הוא. Rav Avadia totally rejects this whole idea. He says, when I pay my Balkore, I don't care what he did and when he did. I care about having a nice, quick, and meduyak reading. That's all I care about. I want those 25 minutes to be precise, and that's it. I don't care I don't care about any of that. I only care about what I'm receiving now. Receiving now on Shabbos. Now, you might say, yeah, but we know that they do most of the preparation during the week. And you guys aren't seeing Glenn's face. But I think so. So this used to bother me because Rav Ovadia, I mean, this is where you choose to machmir. I can find Rav Ovadia is so mekel and most other things, and here he chose to machmir. I understood this better when I talked to my father-in-law about pricing. How do you price things? How is a price given to product? I don't know who here works in that field, the world of products, of creating products, not giving services. I think everyone here everyone I know here at least is in some form of services. What about products? Let's start from there because I think it's easier to understand there.
Not a service, it's a product. It's a form of indemnification.
Right.
There's a loss and people, you're not fixing it yourself. You're providing someone a piece of paper that says if you have a loss that you will give them money, and it's definitely a product. It's not a
but there you're paying. So what are people paying for?
They're paying for the protection of their goods so that they can.
Right, so they're paying for protection. It's not the same kind of product I mean, like when you buy this chair, right? You're very excited about these brand new chairs in Beit Midrash. You're all welcome to enjoy the new chairs we have at the Beit Midrash. Sorry, Rav Baruch, we can send one over if you need. What? So how is the price for the chair decided? How do they decide how much a chair like this costs?
Well, it's the amount of energy. It's the actual raw goods as well as the actual equipment that's required to build it outside of the raw goods, as well as the talent and the hours of labor talent as well as hours of labor for engineering as well as to run this equipment. Right.
So that's what I always assumed. You have a bunch of engineers, you have a bunch of people, right? You have designers, you have engineers, they all have to be paid. You have the
advertising, marketing.
Right, yeah, you have all those other costs of receiving the product, of being able to sell.
But a service is different from a product.
Wait, hold on. I'm not done. Hold on. Hold on. Now, that's what I always assumed.
Should you just charge as much as people will pay?
Right, exactly. Repeat that sentence properly. What? Say that again. say it again.
Surely you just charge as much as people would pay.
Right. In the end, you ask a businessman, you ask someone, a businessman in the world of production, he'll tell you, I do that calculation to make sure I'm not going to lose.
Right. If you had to buy the building and you had to purchase all the equipment and you had to pay off your investment.
Supply and demand.
It's supply and demand. In the end, the only calculation they'll do is they'll say, I need to make sure I'm not going to end up losing too much money. If I need to pay so many people and no one is willing to pay enough to receive this product, then I won't do it. But that's me. When we ask what is the fair price for this chair, the answer is, how comfortable are you feeling? How much are you willing to pay for that? That's it. That's it. I don't know. In the end, when I receive a chair, I don't care. Why? Because the consumer, it's true on both sides. Because the person who creates the product knows that the consumer does not care how much effort was put into it, does not care how hard. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about any of that. He cares about, am I getting what my money is worth? That's it. That's the only thing he cares about.
Well, he cares about does he want the product and what's the market value of that product.
Right, now, again, he says, is it worth it for me to pay 1,000 shekels to get a chair like this? Well, I can get something equally comfortable for 500 shekels, right? So why should I bother? All right, fine, right? So that's fair enough. But I think Rav Ovadia is making the same point regarding services. Rav Ovadia says, we don't really care what you've had to do to reach this point. In a moment, I'm going to show the other side of this. But
So you're saying that the guy that can lane at the drop of the hat doesn't have to do any preparation and everything, that he's the low end of the stick, and he doesn't care that other people have to spend time and effort to be able to prepare the lane.
Exactly. He should be paid exact same amount as the person, because we don't care how hard you had to work. If you naturally just pick up, you hear Parsha once, you can read it, you can lane it. You don't deserve any less. You deserve less than someone who had to do, I think, what most of us need, and spend, several hours looking it over and over again, right? And Ravadi says it's the same thing, because in the end, I'm the consumer. I only care about the service I'm getting. Did he have a 25-minute laning that was precise? That's it. That's all I care about. If it takes him 40 because he reads too slowly, because he has to think too much, so I'd rather take the other guy and who worked harder. I don't care. I don't care. That's not my business. I'm not paying you. It's not my business. Therefore, I'm not paying you for that. That shows that I'm not paying you for the preparation. Now, that's one side. I'm going to discuss the other side.
Wait a minute. Can I ask about that for a second, based on the Tosefta that we started with?
Okay.
Right, you made a point with the Tosefta that we don't need to pretend that he's not working on Shabbat, right? He's allowed to work on Shabbat as long as that's not the only thing. And I feel like you could say the same thing here also. It's true. Of course, the thing that is most interesting for me is that you actually read the Parsha on Shabbat. If you prepare but don't show up for Shabbat, you haven't helped me much. But in the end, that's okay as long as I'm also being paid for the stuff I do on the weekdays. So in that sense, I feel like he shouldn't have I'm not sure that I quite understand this opposition. Yes, the main thing I want is on Shabbat, but also there will be prep time, and it's okay to combine those.
So I think Rav Adi in a way is more of a capitalist than you are. You know what I'm saying? As he says, I don't, just a second, in the sense that he says, I care about what I'm getting. That's it. It's not the main thing is on Shabbos. The only thing is on Shabbos. You had to prepare. I don't care if you had to prepare or not. That's not my business. My business is what I'm getting. What I'm receiving is only what I'm receiving on Shabbos. That's his point. And this now, but here's the thing. I just want to present the other side for a moment.
This is machloket with the Shel Avram, because the Shel Avram says.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Ravad is against the Shel Avram. Yeah.
No. Not just on the conclusion, but also on the Svara, right? Because the Shel Avram says.
Correct. Yeah. Fundamentally, the Shel Avram says, well, this guy had to leave his house on Thursday night already. He had to leave his family. He's like, I don't care. I want my service. I don't care how hard you're working. I don't care what the prices you're paying are. I don't care. It's not my business. My business is getting the service that you're providing. Now, hold on. I think there's a lot of truth on the other side too. I'm presenting one side at the moment, but yeah, go ahead.
No, the Shel Avram says if the Chazan himself thinks, oh, well, I should be paid for my trips and all, and not, I want my money for my Shabbat, for straining my throat on Shabbat.
Right.
That's how I understood it. Then it's okay to give him the money. It's the opinion of the recipient. Rav Ovadia says no. It's the opinion of the giver.
Oh,
if the giver says,
that's what I want to get to.
So that's interesting aspect. Okay.
If the thing painting was a machine, and it didn't matter, there was whatever. It was just machine.
Right.
And do we have an issue of getting compensated for work you do on Shabbat? In which case, Rav Vadi Yosef's argument plays zero role in it at all, because I'm getting compensated for the time and effort I'm putting in 20 times the effort before Shabbat and on Shabbat. If the issue is what you were paying for on Shabbat, then Rav Vadi Yosef's issue is 100% the only thing that we need to be clear on. So the question is
interesting. Okay. That's a very, very good. Both of you are making a very, very good point. I think you and Yonatan are. Yeah, it's the same vein that says Ravadi is saying, what am I paying for? Right? I, the consumer, what am I paying for? They say, okay, that's you, the consumer, but let's take the other side for a moment. Let's say someone says, I'm going to be a professional laner. Let's take a different example that's a bit more, let's take that one. Let's say someone says, I really need to spend 40 hours a week preparing every parsha, right? Now, and I'm going to prepare every single parsha, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to get paid for that. Now, you need to ask yourself, how much are you being paid for every parsha? Because if you're not getting paid handsomely. So if you can spend 40 hours a week, that's going to be, vast majority. You're not going to make a lot more money apart from that, right? So you ask yourself, is this a worthy investment for me? No. If someone else, no, so that's definitely it. Knowing the whole Torah about is great, right? But on the other hand, you have how to feed your family. It's another issue, right? It's also important.
But I want to get back to, do we have a prohibition on paying, or do we have a prohibition on receiving?
So if what I'm thinking about is what am I being paid for? So I say, well, it's complicated. I'm being paid to read, but my job, as it were, is doing all of this, right? Doing this whole thing, right? So I just want to give two refutations, and I want to present Rav Ovadia, and then give two refutations to Rav Ovadia. Rav Ovadia, I think, is thinking in a very capitalistic way and says it's all based on what just like Rafi said before, right? Supply and demand, and therefore the question is not, what do you want to be paid for? What are you expecting? And how hard did you work? We don't care about any of that. We only care about that meeting moment where I say, this is the service I want from you. Will you provide it? The answer is yes. When do you provide it? On Shabbos. Before, after, I don't care. It's not my business how hard you work. I don't care. I'm not dealing with that. Therefore, what I'm paying you for is what you worked on Shabbos, period. And therefore, you're making the money on Shabbos. Now, there are two ways, as we say, two ways of refuting this. One is, maybe you're thinking about Shabbat, but A, as Yaakov said, it's hard to ignore the fact that things had to happen before. And B, as far as the provider is concerned, of course the work has to happen during the week. Most of the work happens then, right? That's
reputations about Yosef. He's basically saying, I don't care about the other person. There's a problem with me paying for goods delivered on Shabbat, period.
Right. So
and
the question is,
I'm paying for is delivered on Shabbat. And the other and all the other things are not refutations. They're basically saying, we don't care that it's being delivered on Shabbat as long as there's the work is being done before Shabbat. There's other work done before Shabbat. Then our payment, not what I'm paying, but our reward could, whatever our remuneration could be for the work done before Shabbat. And it's not a reputation. It's really, what is the problem? Is the problem paying somebody for working on Shabbat, or is the problem receiving funds for working on Shabbat?
So that's one, right. So one refutation says Rav Ovadia is only referring to the person who's paying, but it's not referring to the person who's receiving, and maybe also not the interaction. It's the interaction. If I'm focused, just like this is what Yonatan was saying, if as far as I'm concerned, I'm receiving my work is the work I do on several hours during the week and Shabbat. If that's the way I'm pricing it, if that's the way I'm thinking about it as the person who's working, so l'chora, that should be the end, right? We don't care whether you say, well, I only received I'm paying for something I'm receiving on Shabbat. That's one aspect. The other aspect, I think, has to do more broadly with economics. And the question is, when you go right, you can go to someone. You're going to a mechanic. You go to a mechanic. So you have two kinds of mechanics. You have someone who's just getting into the field, right? And just getting to the field, then you give him the car, and you say, all right, I'll come back. And you say, well, so he runs a bunch of tests, he checks this, he checks that. It takes many hours until he, right, figures out exactly what it is, right? And he's working in here and there. And finally he finishes and everything's good. Everything's fine now. Or he goes to a professional mechanic who's been doing this for years, who recognizes on the spot, this is what needs to be done. 15 minutes later, you're done, you're out. Who do you pay more? Who are you going to pay more? The person who only did 15 minutes of work, or the person who did 6 hours of work?
You certainly would pay them the same because there's a market value for that.
So I'd say even more than that. It very well may be I'll pay more for the person who worked for a lot less time, right? Because I could come in, buy a cup of coffee. By the time I'm done, I could drive out, right? As opposed to the other mechanic, my car is stuck for a day. I'd rather go to the mechanic who's the seasoned mechanic, right? But he only did 15 minutes of work. The other guy did 6 hours of work, right? The answer is yes, but those 15 minutes of work were 25 years of training. You can't ignore that aspect of it. you can't ignore when you're paying for the service, you can't ignore, and this is true about many of the services we give, right? I don't know, I'm sure that Yaakov will agree that his work now is better and more efficient than it was 6 years ago, right? Approximately what they said. What?
Presumably, that's true.
What one would hope, right? And now you're gonna be paid more for less time, for work that take you less time, right? How can that be? The answer is, well, we don't really ignore the training. It's not true that we totally ignore the training. You can always argue the Ravadia argument that says, I don't care about anything else. The question is, what service am I getting right now? But the Shmashak Chata says, it still is true, because in the end, the training really is part of it. The train, you are aware of this is a seasoned veteran. He knows what he's doing, be it a lawyer, a doctor, or a mechanic. So, in all of those, the more you've done it, the more efficient and better the person I gave the car to worked on it for 6 hours. I'll feel probably less. I'll come out with less certainty that I know that he got it right than the seasoned mechanic who did it in 20 minutes, right? Maybe he did a bit too fast, but right. I can tell you, my father has had this problem in the past, where he's a very, very efficient person. It's the way he works. And he's been a dentist for 40 something years at this point. And at some point, people come, and he works very, very efficiently, and he doesn't charge all that much. So many people, Dafka people who come from Chutz La'aretz, they'd come and they'd say, he can't be a good dentist. Like, it can't be that a dentist could work like this. It's not the way dentists work. So he got a bad name in certain circles because he was too efficient, too on the ball, right?
But isn't there, to Caesar, is the prohibition on paying and receiving? I mean,
Absolutely. That's the second aspect of it. Beseder. I think